Welcome to the Sermon in the Valley with Pastor Rob Eller. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast on any of those platforms and share it with your friends and family. Thank you. The views expressed in this episode are solely that of the host and do not reflect the official views of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in New Philadelphia, Ohio, the Northeastern Ohio Synod, or the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Thank you. Let's set one thing straight. We are not a Christian nation, nor have we ever really been a Christian nation. The Founding Fathers never intended for there to be an actual state religion here. That's why the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment states that no, there is to be no state-sponsored religion. No, there is a separation of church and state. Mind you, in that day, Christianity was the predominant religion. But the founders themselves, many of them were not even Christian. Many of them were actually deists. But they never intended for there to be a mixture of the church into the government. And in recent years, there's been this push, we must take back and make this into the Christian nation it used to be. Well, we never were one. And our actions have proven that we are not, nor have we ever been, a Christian nation. A Christian nation would have never enslaved an entire group of people just because they look different from us. A Christian nation would have never have slaughtered the native inhabitants of this land just so we could take it from them. A Christian nation would have never imprisoned a whole group of people out of fear. And in the last few weeks, there have been court decisions and laws passed that further prove we are not a Christian nation. The first one of those, a new law passed in Louisiana mandating that the 10 Commandments shall be posted in every public school classroom. And even more recently, a new regulation from the Superintendent of Schools of Oklahoma mandating a Bible be present in every classroom. Public classroom, mind you. And that teachers need to teach from it. Yet in those states, and many other states around the country, they refuse to pass laws that will provide free breakfast and lunch to students in need. Or they refuse to do food programs for the summertime for those kids who rely on free and reduced lunch. They will make the students stare at and study the 10 basic laws in the Old Testament, but they will not provide them with food. Tell me, where in the teachings of Jesus does it say that we are to push our faith onto those who don't believe? It encourages us to evangelize, to spread the good news, but spreading the good news does not mean forcing someone to convert to what we believe in. It never has. However, Jesus did say that we are to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, to help those in need. Frequently, throughout the Gospels, he said this. Because what we do to those people, we do to him. And likewise, what we refuse to do, we've also done to him. It is unbelievable that people will claim that we are a Christian nation, yet they refuse to help those in need. It is mind-boggling that we are at this point. It is absolutely mind-boggling. If you followed this podcast over the last year and a half, you'll have noticed a number of episodes I've done regarding the homeless shelter here in Tuscarawas County. The advocacy work I've done on their behalf. And the fact I've called out those who have stood in the way. Well, thankfully, they're on the right path. They have secured land. They have done their groundbreaking, and construction will start within a few months on a new facility. That doesn't mean the homeless, or I should say the unhoused, to use a better phrase, the unhoused are still not facing persecution and problems. The Supreme Court came out in the last couple of weeks and declared that an Oregon law criminalizing being homeless is A-okay. There's nothing unconstitutional about arresting someone for sleeping in public because they have no place else to go. It is okay to throw an unhoused person in jail or give them a ticket, which ultimately they won't be able to pay off the ticket, so they're going to end up in jail anyways. It's okay to jail an unhoused person, all because of circumstances beyond their control. Tell me, how is that being Christian? How is that being a Christian? Where in the Bible does it say we are to treat people like that? No, in fact, it doesn't. The thing that gets me is everyone who claims that we're a Christian nation, they'll start studying the Old Testament, which is not the words and actions of Christ. But even in the Old Testament, it tells us to treat everyone the same, to treat everyone with compassion and love. There's a push in the country to deport undocumented immigrants. People who have come into our country seeking a better life. We need to deport them. People who claim that we are a Christian nation, people who claim that we need to abide by the Bible. Yet in the Old Testament, it tells us to treat foreigners as if they are the actual natural born citizens of our land. We are to treat foreigners and aliens the same as we would want to be treated. It's right there in the Old Testament, and yet we continue to treat them with scorn and distrust and say that all our problems are because of them. No. Our country is made better because of them. I guarantee you, many of us, actually all of us who are listening, unless you're an indigenous person or you have indigenous ancestry, we are all ancestors of immigrants. People who have come to this country wanting a better life, wanting to escape from unjust practices in their home countries. Isn't that part of the American dream? To come here because you want a better life? And yet we treat undocumented immigrants as if they're less than. When I started this podcast, I had the intention of it to help spread my sermons and as well as other messages. And I had hoped to never stray into the realm of politics in the process. I had really hoped to keep politics and religion separate, as they should be, but y'all have forced my hand. Because of these actions of people claiming to do things in the name of Christ, but at the same time it is so un-Christ-like, I can't help, but I really can't help but comment on it. Because you're making everything so much more difficult for the rest of us. For those of us who are Christians, who are trying to live Christian lives, who are trying to do the right thing, by doing all these actions in the name of the church, in the name of Christianity, you make it tougher for us because now you are bringing us into it. And everyone is painting Christianity with this broad brush of, oh, that's what they stand for. No, it is not what we stand for. I want everyone to be treated equally and fairly. I want every person who is hungry to have food, every person who is unhoused to have a roof over their heads, for the poor to be able to get the resources they need. But you're making it more difficult. And it's to the point where I can't stay silent anymore. But to those who say, oh, we're a Christian nation and do these things, how dare you? You have broken one of the 10 commandments. These actions in the name of the church, that's taking God's name in vain. That is any action that it only serves to hurt and harm rather than uplift and help, and you do it in the name of God, in the name of Christianity, you are taking God's name in vain. So congratulations, you have done the opposite of what you wanted to do. Now, I have no problem with Christianity being mentioned in schools, as long as it's in the context of the church historical, and you also then bring up other world religions, saying here is the belief system, here are the belief systems around the world. But when you exclusively choose just one, that crosses a line. And to say the Bible needs to be in schools while simultaneously banning other literature. Really? Do you not realize what's in the Bible to begin with? The Bible is a pretty violent, graphic collection of writings. It is not something that needs to be taught in schools by teachers who are unqualified to teach the Bible. You want to learn about the Bible? Come to church. Come ask me. I spent 4 years in seminary studying scripture, studying our faith. I'm qualified to teach it. Not just a random teacher. You wouldn't put me in a physics classroom and expect me to teach physics. No, I'm not qualified for that. I haven't studied it. Someone who hasn't studied religion should not become the ultimate authority on that religion, and that's exactly what they're doing by forcing it to be taught in schools. But circling back to the main point, when we act like this, we are not a Christian nation. We really aren't. So let's not kid ourselves. Let's not. But if we start acting like true Christians, if we start by helping the poor, feeding the hungry, healing the sick, sheltering the unhoused, caring for the immigrant as if they were one of our own. If we do all that, then yes, we can say we're a Christian nation. But until we do all of those things, not just one or some, but all of those things, We have no right, we have absolutely no right to say that we're a Christian nation. I wish we would do it, but it's never going to happen. I'd really hope to not have to do an episode like this, but like I said, you forced my hand. As always, if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast, share this with your friends and family. I think everyone needs to hear this message. The Sermon in the Valley is written and produced in the Patrick Stevens Broadcast Studio, here in the heart of the Tuscarawas Valley. God's peace be with each and every single one of you. Have a blessed day.